Welcome back. This is part 3 of the Housing and Refugees episode for the 10 Minutes On podcast.
We're going to turn our attention then a little bit more to the project that Joe specifically works for and runs. So, Joe, Housing Justice also runs an amazing refugee project, which you lead. Can you share more about this initiative and how it supports refugees in securing housing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called, the Refugee Lodgings Project. And essentially, we were approached by the Greater London Authority in December 2023 in response to the rising numbers of people that were coming out of asylum accommodation and facing homelessness as a result of that kind of lack of time that I mentioned earlier, that 28 days. And it was clear that, that just wasn't sufficient time for people to be finding, suitable long-term housing options, and that something kind of needed to be done. And so what our project aims to do is really to support people at that point where they're either at risk or experiencing homelessness as a result of leaving asylum accommodation. And really, it intends to provide a stepping stone for those people between leaving asylum accommodation and finding a longer term sort of housing option. And it really aims to provide that vital time, that extra time that is needed to find something that works for the person. And the way that we do that is through a lodgings model. So it's Housing Justice will facilitate a 6-month placement between a refugee lodger and a resident landlord. When I say resident landlord, that just means essentially someone with a spare room, and you don't have to kind of own multiple properties or anything like that. And yeah, we facilitate this 6-month placement where it's an incredibly kind of supportive model where we sort of have regular casework sessions with the lodger, regular check-ins with the landlord. And there's always this kind of overarching sort of goal of, okay, what's going to come next? How can we help you to find that long-term suitable housing option that works for you? And part of it as well is that there is rent involved. There's rent charged on a monthly basis. But the idea of that is it's always set at the local housing allowance rate for that particular landlord's area, with the goal that it will then be always affordable via someone's kind of universal credit housing costs. So yeah, that's the model. I mean, it's been really nice. Obviously, we've been kind of operational with it since March this year. So we're looking at about just over 6 months of being operational. And we've had some really kind of nice outcomes that we're very proud of in terms of people being able to move on within the 6 months of the placement to longer term accommodation, 2-year contracts, etc. So yeah, it's been going well.
And there's beautiful stories that come out of it. Within the first day of a lodger moving in, the landlord and the lodger found out they supported the same football team and were delighted to be able to spend the evening watching a football match, supporting their team together, which is just lovely for both of them. So it does result in some fantastic stories,
Yeah, that is brilliant. And I guess one of the things that I want to ask as well is how can churches play a key role in supporting the refugee resettlement through this particular project?
Yeah, I mean, I think already sort of up to now, we're, as Bonnie mentioned, we're a Christian-based organization. So we're very sort of grateful for the kind of church network that we have. And we've already been kind of able to utilize that church network to promote the kind of work that the Refugee Lodgings Project is doing. For example, we kind of collaborated with a charity called Compassionate Communities, who are a sort of social justice charity that kind of work on behalf of various churches in the Diocese of London. And they helped us, so we were present at one of their events that was about kind of Christian responses to homelessness. And we kind of sat on the panel there and shared information about the project. And we also ran an informational project during Refugee Week back in June, and with the help of Compassionate Communities as well. And I think through both those things, we were able to reach out to multiple churches and multiple kind of members of churches and really spread the message about the projects, which we're kind of very grateful for. Really, I think the overarching message that we would be kind of really grateful for churches to sort of spread amongst their kind of congregations and wider networks is just that message of kind of, if possible, kind of opening your home if you do have the kind of that spare room there. And really, we sort of recognize from the conversations that I've been having with people from various different churches, a lot of churches are very much aware of this kind of problem in terms of refugee homelessness. They're often actually kind of on the front line in terms of response to it, particularly churches that are quite close in kind of proximity to asylum hotels. And so for a lot of people, they really kind of want to do something to help. And I think that's where the Refugee Lodgings Project can fill a really sort of useful space in terms of it's a very much a tangible sort of practical thing that someone can do to help a person in need. But also it has that kind of financial motivation there, you know, particularly within a kind of cost of living crisis that we see ourselves in, is also very much important. So yeah, I think in terms of other things that churches can do, it's a lot down to kind of, I think on the more sort of individual level, it's learning about kind of innovative responses to the problem, like the Refugee Lodgings Project. Going onto our website, we've got plenty of information there. We also have a really nice sort of blog section that kind of details different case studies, which I think is really important in terms of kind of bringing this all to life and kind of not just seeing it as a kind of case of numbers, and actually of really kind of nice individual stories with lots of kind of small positive outcomes, like Bonnie mentioned earlier. And sharing those with your networks, you know, whether that's through word of mouth, whether that's through social media, whatever way is kind of comfortable for you, sharing those kind of stories, getting those conversations going. And then off the back of that, we can, you know, if you recognize that within your church or your congregation that there's multiple people or some people that are interested in the project and want to find out more information, then do reach out to us, because we can sort of collaborate. We can, you know, come to your church, bring kind of really key informational posters, host sort of informational events, Q&A sessions, all these sorts of things to make sure that people are kind of equipped with that kind of knowledge of the project. So, yeah.
That's really, really helpful. And I guess I'm just thinking, if I'm a church member and I've got a few rooms spare, but I'm really nervous about potentially going and opening up my house and being hospitable in that way, because I've not necessarily done it before, what would be your key message to an individual like that?
Yeah, I think firstly, you know, the idea of kind of opening your home and welcoming kind of a complete stranger into your home is often very understandably quite a sort of daunting prospect, and obviously might imbue quite a lot of different questions. And I think that's where the model that we have at Housing Justice with the Refugee Lodgings Project is really useful, in terms of we understand that. And for that reason, we have a very sort of extensive onboarding process where we have multiple opportunities to talk with a potentially interested resident person being interested in being a resident landlord about what the project is, about the expectations of it. We kind of host different trainings that often focus on safeguarding these sorts of issues. And the idea of that is that a resident landlord is then comes out of that feeling well equipped, well informed, and prepared to sort of welcome a refugee lodger into their home. And then kind of just to kind of add to that, we also have then a sort of two-stage matching process where the landlord and lodger have two opportunities to sort of meet each other face to face and get to know each other a little bit before kind of making a decision on whether they want to commit to a placement. And I think that, again, is just really important in terms of giving people that time and that scope to making a really kind of informed decision about whether they want to be involved in the project, which has helped us to create kind of very sustainable placements. And I'm, you know, very proud of the fact that up to now we've had absolutely zero placement breakdowns or issues within kind of placements. And I think, you know, that is testament to the very sort of supportive and extensive model that we have in place.
Absolutely. And Joe and colleagues are so skilled at making sure that the match is right. And of course, it's down to the individuals too, but we put a lot of time and expertise into making sure that we are matching the right people. And we accommodate a whole wide variety of people. And we've got some younger refugees who are studying and working and really active and out there. But we've also got some people like a lady who I'll call Jane, who turned up one day to services and had nowhere to live, had no belongings, had absolutely nothing in this country. And she'd been kept as a modern day slave for 20 years in a family's house. And she's 86. But she is incredibly strong. She's resilient. She's mobile. But her chances, if we don't accommodate her, beyond bleak. I mean, there is nothing that our governments at the moment provide for people in her situation. So we now accommodate her, and we're so grateful to the support from the community to help us do that. But there are people out there that desperately need your help, and we need your help. So if there are people out there that would be willing just to have the conversation with us and see if it's right for you, it will be absolutely incredible, because the people that we do accommodate are honestly the most beautiful personalities that you'll ever meet. Their stories are incredible. And we know that on a daily basis, they enrich the lives of their landlords. And it really is a fantastic project that we'd just be so keen to talk to anyone about.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I guess so much of what you're saying kind of speaks to the biblical truth that we know around what it means to be hospitable to the stranger, to, using the Old Testament language, the alien in the land. But I think clearly there's a real motivation from the Bible in regards to Bonnie. I'm just wondering if we could ask this last question briefly, that obviously churches aren't going to solve the housing crisis in isolation or by themselves. It's about policy and the state of the economy. What can churches do to campaign, begin to, I guess, prophetically challenge some of the policies and engaging in a political way?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good question. And as you say, no one person, organisation, sector is going to be able to change it. The Labour conference this weekend, I was fortunate to hear Matthew Pennycook, the MP, newly given the housing brief, who said that we recognise that there are huge numbers, parts of the housing system that aren't working. And this isn't an a la carte situation. We can't pick one section and change it. We have to change the whole lot, roots and branch. And I think that's fantastic. And so on a local level for churches, congregations, it's about looking personally and collectively about what resources we've got to play a part and what we can do to help people in the immediate. And we know that the warmth of love and compassion and the resource of food and bed spaces that our churches offer is vital. But if there are things that you see that aren't working, like the lack of accommodation solutions for people seeking asylum, like the problem of temporary accommodation or poor rented properties, raise it up in your area with your local councillor, with your local government, and really be the voice to represent those problems that you see on the ground. Or, alternatively, come to organisations like us and CAP, Christians Against Poverty. We're all set up to help challenge these issues as well. And then on our website, you'll see resources like the letter that we've drafted to Angela Rayner that we're keen for people to support, outlining the need for the funding that goes to church night shelters and community and faith groups to continue being given. It's such an important part of their government's role in recognising the role that we play and funding that appropriately. So there are a huge number of things that people can do. But again, if people would like to talk to us individually about it further, we are absolutely here. So please do get in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you both for these vital insights. The rising homelessness numbers and the challenges refugees face are urgent issues where faith communities can make a real difference. To all our listeners, whether you're part of a church or just passionate about justice, there are many ways to get involved, and we've touched on quite a few in our time together today. Whether you're through volunteering, raising awareness, supporting housing justice work, or campaigning. I want to also additionally say that it's going to be Challenge Poverty Week the week after this particular episode is aired, and it runs in Scotland from Monday the 7th of October to Sunday the 13th of October, and in England and Wales from the 14th of October to the 20th of October. And this is, again, another opportunity for faith communities to join with other communities as well, to stand in solidarity with those experiencing poverty and homelessness and work towards systemic change. JPIT has partnered with organizations like Church Action on Poverty to provide these resources and for Christian communities as well. I want to strongly encourage you to check out Housing Justice's website and all the resources that they have. And there's some amazing good news stories on their blog section as well for you to read, for you to be encouraged, and also for you to share in your Christian communities as a part of your gathered worship as well. For more information, you can also find on our website at jpit.uk. That's jpit.uk. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it around and spread the word. Thank you.